All right. Big Frank's League of Men. We're back on the Coach's Corner, and today we have got a league legend, I would say. A man that is having himself a week. We were texting, and he says, listen, I'm fired up. I need to get on the airwaves. I need to do Coach's Corner. Nick Widmer, the Revenant. How you doing, buddy?
Man, thanks for having me, man. I'm just making sure my AirPods are connected here again.
Yeah, man, take your time.
All right, I can hear you, man.
All right.
I'm great. Thanks for jumping on quickly with me on a Friday night.
Listen, it's Friday night. The only thing we could talk about right now is there's a no-hitter going on. I think it's Wade Miley's pitching right now for the Reds, and he's kicking ass. So I'm telling you, this is baseball's wild. Big Frank's League of Men has been wild, and let's speak of a wild ride. You got to be feeling good this week.
Yeah, after a year off, and getting some off season heat from I think the Jet Rises called me out for some building some hype heading into this year. So it's good, it's good to let that fantasy muscle memory come back a little bit. I was a little worried that I was gonna be a little shaky, but it comes right back. I think I went into the draft with a pretty bold strategy this year, and I delivered on it. Most specifically, just having depth in pitching, which I feel like I haven't had before, and it was one thing I told myself to do this year. And yeah, man, I'm fired up. It's a lot of fun. I feel like my team's kind of settling into place.
Yeah,
so I'm fired up.
Listen, talk about depth in pitching, right? Go out on the limb. You go Garrett Cole, Aaron Nola, 1-2. That was the plan from the start. Get go, 2 aces off the shoot.
Well, it's funny because I was doing in my own research, I came across, I forgot where I read it, but one guy's strategy was make sure that you land 5 of the top 35 ranked pitchers. You have to do that. And I really took that to heart. And I decided I've never gone 1-2 pitching ever. But I wanted that depth, especially in the top tier guys. I feel like usually you have one of those and you're kind of scrambling all year long, trying to pick up people off the waiver wire, make a trade for those like mid-tier ringers. But it's nice. And, I've had some surprises in pitching this year. Absolutely. But it is nice to know that you have some very powerful aces going for you every week.
Listen, I love the strategy, right? I think as a guy that's been around and guy that's got a ring, guy that's got something to prove, I think you kind of coming out guns blazing, and we'll go back to kind of your draft and picking apart a few things and how you're feeling about the team right now. But for those guys that are in the league that haven't gotten to know you as well, or for those that don't know the baseball story, I'm always interested to hear like what got you in love with baseball, like what got you in love with like fantasy. Like I'm just curious, like what the roots of Nick Widmer look like.
Yeah, well, it's for everyone that doesn't know. Me, Max, Vinny, and Frank went to school together. We all met each other in 3rd grade. Dan also went to Harvard Fields with us. He was 2 years older, but we were Yankees fans, man, from early on. And I remember being a massive Yankee fan from late 90s until basically 2010 or 11. I feel like when I went to college, it started losing steam, but obsessive about the Yankees. And we watched all those epic runs. I mean, you talk about like Arizona in 2001 was probably one of the most emotionally invested I ever was in a sports team. Sports Center, watching, I'm going blank on his name now, but watching Baseball Tonight, Top 10 Web Gems, MVP Baseball was out at that time. And it was just, I don't know. I don't think there's ever been a more like nostalgic, glory-filled team to watch in professional sports than the Yankees in those days.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. And then, lest we forget the epic run of Nick Widmer on the baseball team, rocking, playing hard. I think that was that pre-college during. I can't even remember when we were.
That was like we played. That was awesome, man. We played like some basically 18-year-old league, baseball league, the summer before we went to college.
I think that's right.
Vinny pitched. Frank was a killer shortstop. I played a little third base, and Max played outfield.
Max, I think
Max drops and fly balls.
I tend to remember. I think Nick, you were the better hitter and the better fielder in general. So the little shade at Max, I think that warranted for the sibling rivalry.
It comes through in fantasy too. Vince.
Oh my God!
I'll tell you that.
Shots fired on the. Well, we're talking about the polar opposites this week. My God, I love that.
And to be Max's credit, he's planning a wedding, and so he's been a little busy this year. But that's the only excuse I'll give him. No more after that.
We'll give him a few more weeks of leash, and then we'll have to turn it around. But I think for you now, you've been doing fantasy in this league since the inception, right?
Mm-hmm.
So talk to me you've been on the journey. You've been on the journey. You kind of seen a little bit of everything. Like what excites you most about the league right now? What excites you about the journey you've been on as you've kind of seen everything? What do you love about? Because you don't come back this many years if you don't love it.
Yeah, man. I think when you look at fantasy baseball, it's one of those few things in life, especially when everyone has jobs and kind of higher priority stuff and like just the real world sets in. It's just one thing that is truly fun and enjoyable and competitive. And you weirdly, for all of us that don't play sports anymore, you weirdly get to scratch that like competitive athletic itch, even though it's all on the computer. Like, I don't know, it makes you feel like you're out there, ripping triples and making diving plays.
Nothing like it's. I think Yahoo added that thing this year where I don't know if everybody gets this ping, but like whenever your guy hits a homer, it like pings you. It's like, oh, this person hit a home run. I'm like, oh my God, yes, my team's actually performing. Yeah. I love it.
I know. I'm getting the updates when someone like drops a player, so I gotta like scale those back a little bit. But yeah, I mean, Vin, taking last year off, that was a tough decision. I think I just didn't have it in me, knowing. Strategically too, I just didn't think I had it in me to have to adjust to all the canceled games.
Sure.
That for me was when I was like, you know what, I just don't know if I can keep up with this year. And then a year and a half goes by, and I missed it, man. It's just one of those. It's such like a bummer of a year, having something that's just purely a fun hobby.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what it really is, right? It's like a collective hobby you share with your friends. And I love the group of guys, man. We have an awesome group of guys in this league.
No, I could agree. I think you're right. I mean, like if there was a time to take a hiatus, right? And last year was just across the board just shitty. Being able to come back now and for the Rev coming back as strong as ever, like literally like the Revenant, coming back from like the throes of death from being beat up by the bear. And now sitting in first place. So let's talk about this year. Let's talk about the team. Like, give me how you feeling? Like, what do you, like, you've got to be feeling good, but like, talk to me about your team and where you're at and what it looks like.
I'm feeling good. It's funny. My offense is just starting to turn it on. I'm waiting for guys like Altuve and Azuna to get going. I mean, that home run Altuve hit yesterday was hilarious for me because I had Cole and I had I know I posted something in the group and I had Chad Green, so I was happy and sad at the same time.
Yeah.
But hold on, getting my AirPods. I'm just gonna.
You're fine. You're fine.
Offensively, man, I've had some surprises. Like Buxton's been amazing.
Yeah. Absolutely
amazing. And then, I'm actually interested. I'm not sure if you'll unveil it because it might be something you keep the keys close to you. But I mean, I've always thought I've been pretty good at picking up the right players at the right time. And I don't know what everyone else's strategy is. I'm a big I'm interested to know what you do. Like I said, you may not want to tell me, but I'm a big 2-week guy. Like, what are you doing for me in 2 weeks?
Yeah.
And if you're on the waiver wire, I want to know, I don't really care how you're doing outside of the last immediate 2 weeks. And then I make calls on that. And then you're basically day trading this. It's basically day trading.
Yeah. I mean, when you're talking about, and I think that's the challenging part. So you asked the challenging part for me, it's like when you start to build that team, right? It's where's your droppable guy? Like who you gonna drop and who you willing to drop, right? Because like for example, like on my team right now, I'm sitting on Gary Sanchez, right? Guy barely gets playing time because he's splitting it, but he hits a home run tonight, right? And like, do you drop Gary Sanchez and then Max is sitting down there in last place, like trying to figure out who he's gonna pick up, right? He's gonna scoop that shit up. If he gets hot, then all of a sudden you realize what that looks like. So I think the challenging part for me,
Vinny, I'll give you an example. I dropped Vodo after 2 weeks.
Yeah.
and I think he actually just got hurt, but he was crushing it.
Yeah.
Picked him up. And you're gonna make mistakes, but I think it's kind of like startup investing.
Mm-hmm.
Like if 10% of those players you pick up are gonna have like long production curves for you.
Yeah.
I think you're gonna it's 90% of the time you're just kind of dropping and add the same player. One of those times you're gonna catch someone that's gonna fall into your roster and be a surprise.
But I mean,
I think that's the key. It's those guys. Those are the guys. The guys that can get those guys are the ones that win championships.
Well, I think in this year more than any other, right? Let's look at it. First of all, we're a thinner waiver league because we've got 12 guys, so it's even more competition to get guys. Like, you're not going out right now unless you're. And again, you've got more so now than ever. You got guys like Beers for All. You got Frank. You've got a few guys. They're sitting on players that aren't even in the league yet. They're just sitting on guys that aren't even playing on the teams yet because it's so thin, and they're trying to find lightning in the bottle. So I think that's the intricate part of this year is like trying to find lightning, trying to find a guy that's going to make an impact is so thin. And I think it's going to come down to, I mean, you've kind of started thinking about it too. Like, you got to start thinking about those trades, right? Like, what's going to make you better? Like, what's going to put you in a position? Because like the only way you get a top 50 guy is you trade for him. You're not getting a top 50 guy off the waiver wire this year. If you do, you are beyond lucky.
You're right. And I mean, it's funny. I'm just looking here at the moves, and it's kind of funny how you can see that. So I think it's an interesting metric, moves.
Mm-hmm.
Austin, or actually Vinny, you've 21. Austin leads with 26. So Austin's like a solid 15-20% higher there than everyone else. And he's having a good season. So I don't know. I think fantasy competitively is very similar to Texas Hold'em, because I think your personality is at play, like, and how bold you are with your moves. I mean, one of the reasons I like trash talking in the group me, I'm the same way in poker. I'm not that way in real life. I promise I'm not a dick. There is, whether you want to think it or not, or at least I believe, there's like an intangible personality effect with how bold, and you can kind of, the monster trade's the only thing that all started because I was getting shit trades and I wanted people to know, look, if you're going to send me a trade, like, fucking make it big. I think just doing that, those little communication ways, and the group me's made it even more interesting, are effective.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree with you more. And I think you can get in that pickle, though. I mean, I think I've gotten a little bit of that, right? Where I've been such a monster trade only, but like, I think there's been so many trades that I've done over the years where people go, well, Vince is never going to give me his first good trade. The first offer is never going to be the one that's the one. So like, I can't get away with the trade anymore. So like, I've already built that brand. And now I think trades this year has been substantially harder for me because, like, I always say Joey's like the hot girl at the bar. He's going to cock tease me all night, and he's never going to pull the trigger on the trade, right? And then he's going to trade Trevor Story out to Beers for All, and I'm like, fuck you, dude. We went for we danced for a week. We never made it happen.
I feel like you and I, do you trade me Scherzer a few years ago?
I think so.
I think you and I had a major trade a couple of years.
It was a bat for sure. I had a lot of pitching, and I flipped to Scherzer for a bat.
From you. I think I probably gave away too much because I did terrible that year. But like, Chuck offered me, I shit on it in the group me, and I apologized to him because it wasn't cool. But he offered me a decent trade, man, for Lance Lynn, who's not living up to his potential. Very decent trade, and I kind of freaked out, and it's like, because I'm in first place, it's like, so this is interesting because I think of like the chip leader in poker, right? If you're the chip leader in poker, you can't just sit around and try to hold the stack. You have to actually be more aggressive, using your weight to fend people off and win easy hands. And I'm wondering, and I'm not saying I'm the chip leader because
it's five games.
Right, but what I'm saying is, like, I maybe should have accepted that trade from Chuck, but because my team's in first place right now and I'm beating Harry 11-1 as of last night, it's like, I just don't want to fuck with this yet.
It's still very early. Yeah.
Very early.
What I also think, when I look at it in a trade, and I think this is the intangible that I think about, and this is you talk about competitive and kind of manipulative, right? I want to trade with guys and I want to hurt them so that they can't beat me. right? I need to take the pitching from the good pitching team. So when I play that team, I can beat them in pitching, and I need to know that I can win. So you don't want to trade with somebody to make them better because they're your competition, right? And like that's why I was like, oh, let's go trade with Max, right? Because he's in last, right? Like let's go trade with some of these guys who are on the bottom.
It's not like you're trading players of the NL from the AL. Like you're playing your division.
That's right.
And you have to be ruthless, man. Like you want trades that go through that are lopsided to favor you. I think if you're accepting trades in this league that are lopsided, you almost like shouldn't deserve to be in the league because there's an evaluate trade. Like you got to be pretty out there and not thinking straight to accept a trade that's going to fuck over your team. However, I do think like there's a form of trades as betting where you think someone's going to get hotter, like Ozuna. It's one of the reasons. Yeah, I mean, I know you wanted Ozuna, Vinny, and like he's been doing. I think he's ranked like 700 in the league, but and that's why baseball is just an amazing sport because you know those waves are going to come and go.
Yeah, well, I think you talk about it as like day trading. You talk about it as you gotta invest where you think you're going to get the best dividend yield, right? Like I know Marcell Ozuna at some point is going to hit pretty well. And I'm willing to say, listen, if he sucks for a few weeks and I can get the best version, and that's the gamble, right? That's just like any other version of gambling, right? You've got to gamble on the guy, but I'd say you never gamble. Like I wouldn't gamble on,
okay, Vinny. So this is a funny conundrum though about you offering me that trade.
Yeah.
This is where fantasy baseball gets a little meta. I think you offering me that trade made me more protective of him.
100%.
I was like, oh shit, like. He's batting 180 and only has one home run, but like the fact that Vinny wants him and is giving me a decent trade, like I think I should hold on to him.
Yeah, it's
because I trust your baseball knowledge, Vinny.
Well, that's where I think that's where what I like about this, what I love most about this league, we're not playing checkers here. We're playing chess, right? We're not playing fucking checkers. Like this isn't like where you got serious baseball minds, right? And you got people that want to make moves. To your point. There's going to be guys that are going to be out there, and like that's what this week with. Go ahead.
That would be great. Sorry to interject. I love that as a secondary slogan for a T-shirt or a hat. Just we're not playing checkers.
I mean, and that's where I think in this league, right? Where I think you're bringing now is kind of that, and I think it's an evolution, right? I think 2-3 years ago. You would have pulled that Lance Lynn trade in a heartbeat. Now you're thinking way more strategically, right? You're thinking the long view of like, all right, what do I need to win the ship, right? And how am I getting there?
I know you're not playing checkers. That's what it comes down to. It's true. So how do you, Vinny? How do you like being the commissioner? Like, how's that been for you? Because I did that for 4 years, and I got to say, it's because I'm not the commissioner. I feel like I can be a little more out there in the league. Like I'm able to be a little more hot-headed.
Yeah, what I love about doing this stuff, right? Because at the end of the day, like I have an unhealthy relationship with the fantasy baseball app and an unhealthy relationship with like watching the league, right? So for me, it's kind of just a natural, like I just love doing it because like if a trade comes through, I instantly submit it and the person gets the person the next day. So like for me, I just like the idea of being conscious, like always watching, like always being a part of the flow of what's going on in the league, watching every team, kind of paying attention, right? Frank does a great job with the stats, so kind of leading through that. But just thinking about getting these group of guys, and it's about jabbing on the group me every day. It's like trying to keep the engagement going. I think it's been.
If you have to say you're because when I was commissioner, like there were a few issues. Like I'd almost say it's kind of funny because I wasn't used to being in a leadership position like that where like money was at play and it was kind of intense at times, man. Like there was, 2 years ago when Dan Reinhardt's team like was whipping people's ass and benching players. That was like a huge controversy.
Yeah.
I remember that was a lot of good debates on both sides for that issue. And I remember thinking, like, ultimately I had to make the call. And I remember thinking, look, what he's doing, it may be, like, dirty, but it's legal.
Yeah.
So you have to give him credit for – we're not playing baseball. We're playing fantasy baseball.
That's right. That's right.
That's the difference.
Well, I
So
think you've got the traditionalists, right? And I'll call I'll name a traditionalist in Dan Jarman. He's a traditionalist in baseball, right? A very traditionalist in the way that he plays the game, the way that he experiences the game, the way that he brings fantasy to reality, right? I think that to me is important. So I think the way I look at that, right, is as we thought about settings, payments, all this kind of stuff, right? It was really kind of, you got to absorb what people are saying, but you also have to look at the league, you got to look at the personalities, you got to look at what we're doing. Because like the innings pitched limit for this year is not tiny. It's substantial. It went from 1 inning pitch to now 32. And that's a tilt shift in the way that we play. But I think for the betterment of the league, as you think about like everybody having to up their game and be the best versions of, and in our league to kind of fit what I think all the managers are good at, right, I think it's really trying to think about how these guys want to play, how they want to come, and how they want to compete, and what's going to make it so that there's no runaways, right? This year, even though like there's kind of a tiered fall off, any of these guys turn it around, you look at it, we are bunched together because pitching, you've got to go out and do it. Hitting, you've got to go out and do it. So it makes it more competitive for a longer period of time.
It's a great point. The more competitive the league is with less runaways, the more successful the commissioner and the health of the league. Like the league's health is measured in distance between standings.
Well, because everybody being in first place is great. You want to see 5, 6, 7 guys in first. You don't want to see one guy run away. I mean, when was it Harry a few years ago?
6 teams within 2 games back. Yeah. That's insane.
Well, I mean, we're also in week 5. So, I mean, look at it. Give us to the halfway point. I still think you're going to have a very healthy and then you look at the, 6 is the playoffs. The drop-off is there, but it's not astronomical, the drop-off. There's a few beatings of people that are going to flip that around and move it around, right? But I do think that's really how I'm looking at it. Are the settings right? Because if someone's running away with it, if there's 3 teams running away with it, it means that it's really favoring those people, the way that they play. This way, you look at the waivers, people have to stream a pitcher. Like we've got people streaming pitchers, which means they have to drop players. They got to pick new people up unless they have a really robust bullpen, which you have, I have, right? So we feel comfortable. We don't have to add drop on the weeks for that. So we kind of looked at that and built our teams around it. So I think the strategy comes into play. So I'm excited about it. I think time will tell how the league goes and how this continues, but I think I love what we do here. I love the league. I love just having the group me. I laugh every day on that group me. Like the stuff we post up there is so funny.
It's great, and like you get out of it I think you really do get out of it what you put in. And it's just been a lot of fun. You've done a great job, and so has Frank, keeping it going, man. Survive the pandemic.
Yeah,
we got weird there for a little bit. Like I think just watching baseball games with fans in the seats is just. It just feels it's just so much better.
Well, it's going to be full capacity in no time, right? You're going to have full Yankee Stadium in end of May, beginning of June. It's crazy,
right.
And I can't imagine going yet, but definitely it's something you're excited to hopefully, start to get back to that sense of normal, which is great.
So this Knight just went up 8-3 against Trouts out of Compton.
Listen, it's got to happen. The moves have to happen. So when you look at like those guys in the bottom, and I think, I got to say that Lauren has got the unluckiest batch. That's the team that's probably got the most fire because he's got all of his offenses on the DL. Like everybody great is on the DL. So like that's where I'm looking at the bottom 3. Really, Lauren, Nick, and Max have got to decide to make a move, and they've got to make that move now because to your point, it's 11 and a half games.
I think Dan Jarman and I always say that Memorial Day is kind of the official start race.
Sure.
Well, not the official, but kind of the unofficial, next leg of the race where you kind of see some caliber teams taking place. But Vinny, you do a similar thing as me, or at least I'm doing right now, where you have your offense fully loaded with no, or actually you have one bench player. One bench player, and you run a big bench and pitching.
Well, my thing with pitching, right, and I'm all about it. Add as many closers as you can that are lights out, because at the end of the day, that's something what's going to happen, and it gives you strikeouts, it gives you innings, and it gives you ERA and WHIP. It pulls it down, right? So for me, you got to stack.
How are you doing in saves? You're doing pretty decent in saves. You've 2 closers.
Yeah, I think pitching. No, I have 5 closers.
The saves category is is a tricky one. And it's one like I'm trying to actually figure out right now because I have Jansen. I'm trying to figure out, and I've actually been doing better on stolen bases recently.
Sure.
But I'm trying to figure out like whether I should just go all in on one of those and completely give up the other one.
Here's my thought on it. Right, I think there's, to your point, there's the determining point in a season where you say, okay, I'm either gonna have a team that can win 12 categories. I don't. Right? Can I go out and get it? Can I go out and get one more closer? And if I have Jansen, a mid-tier closer, maybe I go out and get somebody else. I go out to a bottom team, or I go talk to Vin. He's got 5 guys. I can pull one out of him, right? Do you build it and say, I'm going to go for 12? Because if you can't go for 12, right, then you got to fully sell. Then you got to make sure you can win 11. That's the way I think about it. If I can't win 12, I've got to win 11. And I've got to pinch into that and say, I got to go for it.
But what I'm saying, I have that. I think so too. But what I'm saying is, are we fucking ourselves where it could be, okay, we're going to go all in on 8 every week. Or all in on 7. All in on 7. Don't even worry about 4. And then you may not be getting those big swings, but you may be winning 6, 7, 8 games every week versus you and me. Like I almost lost 2-9 last week if I didn't have a big Sunday.
Yep.
And I think you're risking more in your team by trying to spread out all those categories.
I think I think it comes back to, and this is where early in the season, I'm not sweating. This is the most calm I've been early in the season. I've sat on guys. I've sat on things and been like, all right, I'm going to let the team form around me because like I'm waiting. But like to your point, my team will always be a 6 category. Like I'm not ever worried about 6 categories. Like I know there's 6 in there somewhere in the hopper.
Right.
Like there's going to be a bad week where I get 4. But if I ever go lower than 4, I'll just kill myself. Like that's how I think about it. Right? There's no blowouts.
How are you liking your team this year?
I hate my team right now. So like my team, it plays well. It plays what it needs to do. It matches up. It's not sexy, right? And I love when the team is sexy. I don't have the like getting some pitching.
Vinny, how's McCutcheon doing for you? I dropped him last week.
He started 2 home runs in the first game, and he's been hitting RBIs and runs. Like I saw Kutch on the waiver. I'm like, Kutch is solid. He's a top 125.
He hit 2 home runs. Are you fucking kidding me? On May 4th,
first day on the team. Yep.
God damn it.
But that's where I look. So that was like literally for what I do in the league is like when people give up on the big player, like Dan gave up on Jesus Luzardo, you gave up on McCutcheon. Like I look at the draft board and where their ADP was. So like literally Luzardo is a top 10 draft pick. McCutcheon's in the top 15 rounds, right? So those are guys where I'm willing to take the stab on those guys and wait on them because I know that they've got the potential with ADP. So like that's how I think about it when I'm like scouring and I see someone make a drop. Like Tommy Pham is on that sweet spot for me too.
So you're going back to their original ranking.
I go back to like historically where they should land, right? Because like everybody has, like, I think everybody in the league, with the exception of a few really good players, they start in that like I'm doing okay unless they got a hot start. But most people, when it starts getting warmer, baseball's a warm weather sport, right? These guys don't like playing in the cold. That's why spring training you see these massive home run numbers and you see all this kind of stuff because they're in Florida, they're in Texas, they're in Arizona. It's warm.
I think about that.
Yeah, so that's where I go back.
This guy Khalifa's doing well for you, huh?
So that was one of those ones where I looked at. So I knew I was going to need Gary Sanchez's backup. This is a guy that plays shortstop and he has catcher eligibility. So he's the best of both worlds because literally he doesn't play catcher and he's literally a shortstop that does really well. He steals bases.
You get that flexibility with him.
So that was where he was a strategic play because I knew I needed that in order to make sure I had a backup for if Gary Sanchez blew, which it looks like he's gonna, versus what I thought it was.
Gary Sanchez is a great example. One of those guys you draft and could literally go either way.
And you gotta wait because if I drop him today, the second he comes off waivers, he's gonna get snatched up.
Well, someone's gonna sit on him. He's got some brand to him, you know. Like that's the other thing. You pick up people who kind of have some mojo. Sometimes you need that. Like Andrew McCutcheon is a great guy who's like, look, he has that spark. He was a top tier player like 4 or 5 years ago, right?
Well,
here's one thing I think about too when I have, because sometimes I didn't want to drop McCutcheon, but it was like a Sophie's choice. I had to drop someone. I always think if you're uncertain about who to pick up or who to drop, and sometimes I think about this in my draft. I found about with Garrett Cole is go with the player who's going to be on a good team or who is on a winning team.
That's right.
I think there's a lot to that I think about. Like a pitcher, man.
Well, pitcher for sure. You need a pitcher that has offense behind him. Like it's anybody. Yeah. That's where, like, picking up a guy in the Orioles is great, but like it's the Orioles. They suck, right? So I think that I completely agree with you on is like you've gotta sometimes look at the surrounding cast when you're making decisions on the waiver.
You gotta look at some external data points and situations that aren't included in the player's realm, and you gotta think about those a little bit. I think that type of stuff is what gives you a little up.
Yeah. Well, you got to be stoked. I think I was just looking at this. You got to be stoked that Luke Voigt, who's your big bat, is coming back. I think you might broke up. I think you're frozen.
On lost you 45.
Hold on. You're frozen a little bit.
You there?
I can hear you now. Yep. You just froze for a second.
All right. Sorry, I missed what you said there.
No, we were just talking about the team. I said for your team, if I was looking at your team, I'd say Luke Voigt, you got to be pretty stoked that you've got probably your biggest bat that hasn't even swung the bat yet coming back.
I'm very excited about Luke Voigt.
Yeah. He's already pounded home runs in the minor league, so you got to be stoked.
Yeah, I know. He's hitting home runs in the minor league. I think it's like the other thing with Luke Voigt. I think the Yankees really need him right now, and he's gonna like bring that heart back a little bit, which I want the benefits of on my fantasy.
I mean, just having somebody that's it's like when Nick Swisher was on the Yankees, just a spark plug guy that just got everybody stoked. I couldn't agree with you more.
You need some locker room guys on your fantasy team. And I know I always say that, and people think that's like, but it's like you do, like, because they're winners, and winning creates momentum, and there will be residual benefits of those stats on teams like that are making runs.
Yeah, no, I agree. I couldn't agree more.
But Buxton went down today, so
injury.
Yeah.
Well, that was a ticking time bomb. That's the Achilles. He can be a literally a MVP candidate, but he's Mr. Glass.
How about favorite fantasy players you've ever had on your team?
Well, I mean, there was a year, my first year in the league, my draft was horrific. And it was the year where Aaron Judge and Cody Bellinger both were rookies, and they came up and they were in the home run derby, like back to back. Like those guys were just literally cranking home runs. They both had like 40 home run seasons because they came up and it was fresh and hot. So like it was painful for me to trade Aaron Judge this year. Painful for me to trade him because he's one of my favorite players in life. And in fantasy, he is literally, if he's on, it's just unreal. You just literally have the guy.
Let's talk about that trade a little bit, Vinny. Yeah. Because tell me, because I remember I respected the fact that you were trading Judge. It was as if you were like, again, you're not playing checkers, right? So like, what did you trade him for? Remind me who you traded him for, then tell me how.
Jack Flaherty, pitcher for the Cardinals, ace pitcher for the Cardinals.
You went 1-1.
1-1.
Okay, and what made you do why Flaherty? Why did you try to pick him?
So 3 reasons for Flaherty. Number 1, Aaron Judge, like Mr. Glass, he already had an injury kind of rumor, and I was like, all right, can I sell high on this? Number 1, he was playing well. He's still playing well, so it's pretty equitable. Number 2, Jack Flaherty's a second round pick, and Aaron Judge is a 4th round pick. So you're trading up. When I think about trade value, I'm always trying to get up the board, not down the board. So Jack Flaherty, to me, I was never going to be able to get him any other way besides trading up to get him. And just like you, I believe that the backbone of a good fantasy team is unbelievable pitching. Even with my squad this week, they had a bad week. It's looking rough. If I was playing anybody else, I would be down 5 categories because they just didn't show up. But like on most weeks over anything else, they're going to show up. I have enough aces that will do that. So to me, it was, all right, I'm going to give up some of this offense, which I'm feeling because I don't get a lot of RBIs right now. My team is very RBI light, but I'm trading up, getting an ace pitcher. I'm going up the board. I'm moving up, and I'm also trading somebody that most likely at some point during the season is going to be on the IL.
Who'd you trade him to again? I'm going to look at their team real quick.
That was Beers for All, Harry. That was when Tatis went down.
Wait, you mean Chuck? Beers for All's Chuck.
No. Sorry, no. So no, not Beers for All. Why did I say that? Pedro's Midget. Pedro's Midget. So Harry,
Yeah.
it was when Tatis was injured, so I think he hit the panic button, and it was literally, it wasn't even my trade. It was Harry reached out. He's like 1-for-1. I'm like, yep, okay, that one fell kind of to me where I wanted it. So
well, that's it's also interesting. I respect that trade, Vinny. That's an example of a veteran fantasy baseball player who is trading someone from their favorite team off quietly for a kind of an unsexy pitcher who's going to bring stats.
But I mean, Jack Flaherty, you look at him over the last few weeks, he's like the second ranked pitcher in the league. He's a quality starts machine. He goes 6 innings every time, 5+ Ks every time. The worst his ERA is going to be is like a 3.60. Like, he is just Mr. Consistent, and he's on the Cardinals, and they're awesome. So
yeah, right.
It was an easy one, after I kind of thought about it. Yeah.
Nice job.
But yeah, I am always open for a trade. Literally, I will make a trade any day. There's no one I'm like. I mean, even Ronald Acuna. Like, if someone gave me like 3 top 5 players or top 5 top 5 draft pick players, like, that could help me build my team, I'd trade Acuna in a heartbeat, 100%. Like, it just has to be the right trade. It has to be, the value has to be there. But
I got some pretty good pitching on my team, so maybe we can put our people together.
Listen. I am all about trying, because that's the problem. Like, I'm trying to find a trade out there.
Actually, all right. Here's a question for you, Vin. Number one so far, the best monster trade only. What was it? I guess I know the answer to this, but in your opinion,
what is the best? So the best value was the Trout pick.
That's
that. I mean, anytime Trout moves, right? It's a no-brainer that team is instantly going to have just, I mean, I think the value, I think I talked about it. I think it's a value-centric trade, because I think what Nick needed was a lot of players. He needed a crop. And when you trade, and this is where I'm like, if I was someone in the bottom 3, right, I got to trade one guy and I got to get 3 really good guys, because that gives you value. You could drop all the shit that's around you, all those like mediocre players that you're just hanging on to, because you're not going to find someone off the waiver wire. If you're Nick, if you're Max, you got to trade Frankie Lindor for like 3 players. Like, that's what you got to do. Like, you got to tuck your balls in between your legs. You got to go out and find the trade, get somebody that's going to be a sucker, and get 3 players. Get a closer, get a big bat, and get a good pitcher. And then trade away your guy, and then you at least get more value, even though there's that one guy you want to keep. I think that, to me, so that's the Trout piece for me. Other than the Trout one, which I think is,
I think you're right, Vinny. I think Max Whitmer needs to do trade for Lindor.
Well, I think, and of course, Lindor had a great day today, so now it's never going to happen, right? The value goes up through the roof because Lindor is now hitting home runs and doing his thing. So, but I think that's, to me, if I was in that position,
he's 14 games back. Yeah. Like, he's one bad. Max is almost at a point, and he's my twin brother, and I love him, but it's the reality. If Max loses 10 or 11-1, he's done for the season.
I don't know about. I don't know about that, because speaking from someone 2 years ago that was in last place and then won the championship, and I was in last place for like 7 weeks in the middle of the season. Right? It's really, this league is all about how you close. You've got, like, you can suck to start, but I look at Chuck is the same way. Like, he had a team on the IL all of last season. He was in the bottom 3. And then he comes all the way back. Like, I think it's a lot around those maneuvers. Like, if Frankie Lindor becomes ridiculous, right now he's the nucleus, then you've got to just figure out how to. He's got JD Martinez now. He's got, Frankie Lindor. That offense could turn on. Then he's just one streaming, rookie pitcher that comes out of nowhere from all of a sudden being relevant. So I think that's where I think if I'm Max, I've got to balance that. If I'm Lorne, if I'm Nick, I've got to balance. And Nick's been making a lot of moves. I mean, I've got to give a new manager in the league a lot of credit for trying to make some really substantial moves, trading a big name, trying to get back in it. You got to respect it.
You do. It's a long climb up, man. You start going down, you start going back. It's a long climb up, and I think I like your point about that's where you send 1 for 3 and rebuild your team.
But I think the other thing about fantasy baseball is that there is a heavy emotional burden when your team stinks. You're just like, I don't even want to go on the app. I'm not going to go hunting for people anymore. Like, why should I bother, like, scrounging the earth for the next pickup, right? Why should I go find a trade? Like, my team just stinks right now. Give it a week. Give it 2 weeks. I might come back. And I think that's a dangerous headspace to be in. We're like, God, I just suck. And maybe it'll happen, right? The second you get out of that and you're like aggressive and you make that one move and that one, like the JD Martinez trade, I thought was going to be the fire.
Dude, night 9-3 right now.
Listen, it can happen in a heartbeat.
If Max gets a 9-3 win, if that holds, he's right back in this thing.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is though and it's for everyone. You with it packed so close in the top 4, if you go 30 games back, yes, you're steadily.
Oh, I mean, to get to 6, it gets to be impossibly hard. And lest we forget, he's going 9-3 against a guy that's in the bottom of the league. Next week he's got you, so he's got to go 9-3 because he's gonna have to compete with somebody that's going 11-1 right now. So I think that to me is like. Yeah, I'm looking at that's the other thing that I'm doing is I'm always looking at my schedule and like, all right, what do I need to be in 2 weeks? Like, who do I need to be? Because I need to be a better hitter in 2 weeks. I need to make that move.
Also, I think Max will get from me next week. I'm going to get a double Cole Nola start. So that's something that's interesting with my team is like sometimes I don't get both of them. Those weeks that you get the 2 starts, you're just throwing up. I've had some crazy pitching days, man.
Yeah,
because I paid crazy pitching weeks.
Well, that's where I lucked out this week. I was supposed to, against Jarman, I was supposed to get DeGrom twice, Ohtani twice, both of them injured this week. I was like, well.
Dude, you're beating Dan 9-1. Oh, man. This is wow.
Dan's having a tough offensive time. Everybody went down this week.
I feel like Dan's also like been like you, I think. I think he's been frustrated with his team, and he's, look, when you're winning and you're at the top, like it cures everything, man. And the more, like, and by the way, it's one game, like back, and I'm in front by 1 game, so I should not have any sort of cockiness. But all of a sudden, you start getting a little light on your toes. You think, oh yeah, my team is in a great place, and then you get left hooked in 1 week. So, but you can't get insecure and give up on your strategy.
No, I think, and the way you win in this league. You lose any more if you have less than 3 categories, you're fucked. It's got 4 or more. It's like you can't lose like 9, 10, 11. That's double digits. If you fall double digits in a week, you're stumbling. You're all the way on your ass. Like if you can have a bad week, but you gotta like if you're down, you gotta manipulate your strikeouts. You gotta manipulate your saves. You gotta go find you gotta go find something that's gonna give you a category back. Like you gotta claw even if you're down like if it's like 3-9. Make it 4-8. Like you got to find a way to get that one category.
I always like to keep, even though I haven't been doing it this week. I've been picking up guys early in the week this week versus you always like to leave a few chambers open.
You need a chamber on Sunday night because that one guy you wanted that everybody wants on Monday morning, you want to pull it before they're able to pull that trigger, which I'm a huge fan of.
Yeah. Yes, you're right. But also if you need a pitcher on Sunday. Like it's always good to not burn through all your moves, right? I like that. Here's what I also like in terms of updated settings. Really like the 4 ads a week versus 3. I think it's ads versus moves too, or has it always been ads?
It's ads and moves. Yeah, it's the same. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I like that a lot. I also like the quality starts and no losses.
Yeah, it's a different way of looking at it, right? I think the quality starts they're kind of rare because they're kind of rare, but what it allows you to do, the reason we put 32 innings in is because you can just put somebody out there. The worst that's going to happen is you get a bad ERA whip. You're not going to get a loss, so there's no like the negative is what most pitchers' negatives are.
Yeah. What I like about it and why it's why we should have been doing it all along is your team doesn't suffer if your pitcher pitches well. Like, whereas last year you'd have those brutal games where you'd have Scherzer go 8 innings and get the loss on a 1-0 game.
Yeah.
It was just so demoralizing.
It's the DeGrom factor, right? It's literally having a pitcher that is so good that's just on a shit team. Like that's DeGrom's number one. But now on our league, DeGrom is unbelievable because even if he loses, he's going to pitch less than a run and you're going to get a quality start. You might not get the win, but wins in fantasy baseball are pretty rare too. I mean, wins and quality starts for pitchers, they're not like, you don't see anybody running up 8, 9, 10 wins a week.
Dude, that's why the pitchers in fantasy baseball are the face cards of fucking poker, man, because you get a good one, it's an ace or a king, literally.
Yeah.
Wins, strikeouts, ERA, whip, quality starts. I mean,
well, I think
it's taken me a while to realize that. Like, there's like a higher margin of the top tier pitchers who can do that for you.
Mhm.
And I was always someone who like thought I could get by on pitchers. And by the way, I'm literally one game up. There's 6 teams are within 2 games. I'm acting like I've put together some successful franchise. So
It's looking good. It's looking
I don't
good.
mean to be giving that off, but it took me a while to be like, no. If you get to top tier pitchers, like you're fucking ripping for your team.
Well, you never worry about saying, okay, start this guy. You never worry about it. But I could say, I think you'll have guys, and I think there's many players on this league that'll say, I'd rather have Ronald Acuna Jr. than Garrett Cole, because I need somebody that can hit home runs, RBIs. I need a guy that I can always count on in the lineup to give me offensive power, because the second you index so far to the left, and you've had a really good balance, so like you've got 2 aces, you've got some really good pitchers, you've picked it up, right? One of those guys goes down. Now all of a sudden, if your offense isn't there, so it's the beautiful balance of health, of pitching, of all that. I think it's you've got to be, and we use managerial, you got to be very agile. You got to figure it out. You've got to move with it. You got to move with the times. You've got to figure out like, where do I need to go? Like, if you start pulling away, Nick, what do I need to beat you? Like, that's what I thought about a few years ago when it was me versus Chuck for the championship. Like, how do I beat him? What do I need to trade for to beat Chuck? Because I couldn't beat him with the team that I had. I knew I wouldn't match up, so I made 6 or 7 moves to make that happen. So I think as you go through the season, it's all about figuring out where you're going to play. I think that's the most fun part of the whole game.
And it's what you're dealing with amazingly is just streaks and getting, and like you just said, Vinny, with aces, you don't have to worry about starting them. I actually think it takes a lot of fantasy managerial agility to bench. Like, I'm always really stoked when I bench a player and they have a terrible start, and I'm like, that was a good, that's it.
Yeah.
That's it. I just helped win my week by doing that, by making that call. Maybe I'm looking at the matchups, checking how they've done against this team historically, because Yahoo will show you that stuff. And I think that's the thing where you think about, oh, maybe this team's lost a few games.
Sure.
Maybe they're hot right now. And you're able to make those calculated bets. It's like, folding a hand.
Yeah.
And when you beat, you're like, good, I made the right call there.
I think that's I could agree. I think for me early, and I made that mistake. So like early in the season, my philosophy the first 15 weeks is you play your team. Like it's too early to tell, right? Because you got to see what that team can do at its best, and you got to see what that team can do at its worst. I made that mistake last week. I could have tied last week if I pitched Robbie Ray, and Robbie Ray was playing Atlanta, and I was like, oh, Robbie Ray's going to get lit up, and Acuna's going to hit 3 home runs on him. I'm not going to play him. He had an amazing game. Quality start, win, 5 strikeouts, everything you needed out of it. I would have tied Shaw in 3 categories, and we would have been tied for the week. But I didn't do it because I was like, oh, let me play it and let me game it. So I think that's my mantra I've got to stick with early on is I go like, I got to see my team at its best. I've got to see it at its worst.
Yeah,
and like, how do we navigate the sea?
It's a great point. I think I agree, Vinny. I think you need to start your team, especially with your relief pitchers, and you just say, you know what, they're gonna blow a game.
Oh yeah,
they're gonna blow a game. It doesn't mean you cut them. It just means they had a bad game.
Yep.
And you got to be non-reactive, and then if it happens 2 or 3 times a week, or 2 or 3 times in a week, yeah, that player is. You can't risk that anymore. But I think it's more risky to drop someone if they had a bad start, try to pick someone up who had a good start. Then you're just constant. And I've been in that position. I think 2 years ago, I was just bringing players in, chucking players out, trying to ride these mini hot streaks, and it's exhausting.
Yeah,
because you don't just like it's like driving automatic versus stick, right? You just want to let your team run.
Sometimes you just gotta watch it. Yeah, you want to watch this team develop to what it can be, and I think that's where, like for example, this week my pitching's at its worst. So when I look at the end of the week, and this was like the worst week of pitching I'll probably ever have in the season, how did I match up against the team that was the best this week? Would I have gotten a 6-6? Would I have tied, or would I have lost? If I lost, how do I mitigate that risk moving forward? I need to know what my worst week looks like in order to be able to play to my best in the times where it's going to count.
Right, and like I think the weekly stat categories are like, that's a huge tool you can use. At least I use it because I'm kind of giving away everything I do in this league, but whatever. Like, you can see like where you can balance your team out.
Yeah.
And like, but it also, I think that tool, that's a page that helps you craft trades too.
Oh, for sure.
Because you might have a little fat on your team. I'm actually starting to think I might have a little too much pitching fat. Just a little too much, or I could maybe get rid of one of those.
Well, you got to think about where you have, to your point, where is it? Where do you have enough of it? Where you could say, do I go get the big bat? Do I go get the reliever? Do I go get the stolen bases? Do I get this? Like, what can I go get with? And that's the equity that you have when you have that equity.
When you're trading a top 4 player on your team, the air is thin.
Yeah.
Like you can't really fuck that trade up.
Yeah.
Like if I'm gonna try to trade Cole or Nola, and maybe add Duffy, I gotta sting like a fucking bee man with who I get on that trade. And that it's scary. It's not fun. It's not fun. When you like some of the most exhilarating moments. I remember being at my old job and I traded with Joey, or maybe it was you, Vinny. Maybe it was a Scherzer trade, and I was like had goosebumps, man. I was like so fired.
Submit, no baby.
I was like, I'm done for the day. My work here is done.
It's noon. You walk out. I'm done for the day. I did my job. I love that.
It's fun, man.
Yeah.
The trades are really exciting.
Yeah. No, I love it.
I think we should keep track of top monster trade, like name a monster trade of the, or maybe monster trade of the month. Maybe I'll start a little side pocket that's just monster trade of the month.
I love it. Listen, I think the things I want to add. So I think there's GIF moment of the month because we put so many funny fucking moving pictures on that group me. We got to have a GIF of the month. So I got to work on that. And then I actually
think I'd vote for your, I know it's not a GIF, but if we're voting for media, I would vote for your seltzer review. That was awesome.
That was a good ad for the month. I was stoked about. I'm going to continue to add some kind of reviews as we do some of this stuff, just to make them a little bit lighter. But I also think I love what Max did today, like those Yahoo like discussion boards.
What was up with that? I didn't even.
So what you do is if you go into each player, and I think this is, if you haven't done this, just go to like the player that's either slumping on your team, like, or has like some kind of weird thing in the background, right? Like something about them that people don't like. It's called Discuss. It's the bottom right corner when you click on a player. It's called Discuss. You click on it, and then it's like people could just talk about the player. And some of the like the worst human beings on the.
Is that on the app?
It's on the app. I think you could do it on desktop too. So if you go on desktop and you click on the player, just look for it says Discuss, and it's just like literally so. For example, like Domingo Herman, right? Who like got in a domestic abuse thing 2 years ago. Every week they're just like, I want to ride this guy, but I'm afraid he's going to beat my wife. It's just like, what the fuck? These guys, it's just like the trash of society talking about MLB players. I think you read some of this shit. It's hilarious. It's hilarious. So
I got to check that out.
It's like
I'm sure they're saying the same. So they're like saying the same shit about owning this player as you are.
Yeah. Oh, and every time you think something negative about a player, there's a person that thinks 10 times worse of this player than you do, and you just laugh. I mean, it's literally the trolls of the internet on this site, just killing it. So,
dude, Wade Miley just threw a no-hitter. Sorry.
No, I was watching it in the corner of my eye. It's wild. I think the pitching this year. So Shaw just picked him up. He was on the waiver.
Fucking awesome.
Yeah, between him and I think Dylan Cease was on the waiver wire yesterday, and I was like, damn, that was a one that I should have picked up. So there's still stuff out there. I mean, there's still players out there to go out and find and value out to go get. So just can't give up.
I actually have a few waivers. I picked up. Where are they? They start tomorrow. I'll tell you when they come through. AJ Pollock. I picked up AJ Pollock.
That was a good pickup today. I saw that.
Yeah.
Yeah, my best pickups of the year, Emmanuel Clase, the closer from Cleveland, who's been nasty except for tonight. He blew a game, but it was all unearned runs. Nick Salak was unbelievable this year. Pickup. Actually, Kiner Falefa was a pickup. I didn't get him in the draft. But I've kept most of the squad intact. I haven't done a lot of moves and drops from the base. Yeah. It's interesting. But plenty of time, my friend. Plenty of time.
Yeah, plenty of time, man. Well, listen, I think I'm going to go to bed soon, but thanks for having me on, man. I'm glad we could do that.
Listen, Coach's Corner with the Revenant. This was a a blast talking baseball. This was the most kind of baseball shop talk I've done on one of these. So I always appreciate another manager that thinks a similar way and sharing some of the tips and tricks. Yeah, it was great. So, ladies and gentlemen,
being transparent, I think we not do like. I think it was kind of fun sharing strategies.
Listen, I say it to everybody I work with. So at work, I say to anybody that I share things I do at work, I'm like, listen, if you can replicate what I do, good luck. Good luck if you can do it. Like my brain works away. If you want to try to copy me, great. It's a most sincere form of flattery, I guess. But no, I think just putting your cards on the table. Good poker players. My poker face. You want to go face to face? Let's make it happen.
I agree with you. I'm not afraid of like stealing. It's like, look.
Yep.
There's a philosophy. I think the last thing I'll end on is I think you have to stick with a philosophy about your team.
Yeah.
And go for it. And when you let that get nebulous, you're lost.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, listen, Nick, thank you, buddy. Awesome having you on. Coach's Corner, rocking it out. We will have some more stuff coming up. Maybe a surprise Song of Bryce and Fire Studios superlatives episode coming out tomorrow. So more to come. Nick Widmer, thanks for joining us. Have a great night, guys.
Thanks, Vinny.